So, for the past couple of weeks, I've been working on and off to bring a particular scene from my personal project onto the canvas. Now, I went through many iterations and thumbnails, and it seemed to me that I could not, for the life of me, land on a particular idea. So, there was always this nagging feeling that it's not quite there. And even after I'd gone through the scene with line arts and colors and somewhat reasonable perspective grid, I would have to go back and say, well, it just isn't there yet. Now, I've given this some thought. I realized that maybe all of this could be attributed to my lack of vision and storytelling. Now, I know as visual artists, we normally have to have a certain amount of quote unquote vision to start our project and have it seen through all the way to the end. But in my particular case, it may or may not work like that. I realized that I need to know what the story I'm telling is in a particular scene. If it's just a few lines, that is in my head. And that would have to suffice. And if I adhere to that, I would have a much easier time to follow through with a given project. Now, I have gone through two major iterations for this project and many minor ones until I landed on the one that you see in the middle of the thumbnail for this video. Needless to say, I am not 100% happy with the results that I got, but I think it turned out better than the last one. And I think that the process that helped me get better results might help you as well. Or to put it more succinctly, you should try to find also your own process, art making, that makes the most sense to you. Now, I may do another video outlining more of my own processes that I feel great about and I think that helps me get better results, but that's another question for another video for another day. But back to the point of this video today, I'm gonna have to say that once you pinpoint what it is that you're trying to convey, everything else sort of follows along. Now, I know that in colleges and maybe video tutorials and art schools and whatnot, they always say that, okay, now you need to do the research, you need to do the shape language, the iterations, the thumbnails, and then after that, once you see something that you like, you pick and choose, you start mix matching thumbnails together until you land on the design, and now you take it to the next step, you add more details, and now you can take it to the final step and basically make a whole scene out of it or make a whole new design out of it with colors and different angles and whatnot. Now, I do agree with that process. I am not here to tell you that this process is bogus. Absolutely not. I have used it countless times before. But one thing I'm trying to point out here in this video, and I do hope that I make sense, is that what happens when you don't like the thing that you're doing? You're halfway through, you don't like it, you seem to be adding more stuff, you seem to be mixing and matching, you seem to be playing around with colors, fiddling with the angles, maybe a few compositional changes here and there, but you still feel like that the scene or your design is not quite there. Now, there are two sides to this. If it's a client project, then I guess you would have to take it up with the client. Depends on the relationship, the rapport that you have with the client, and you would basically have to talk to them, see if they can give you more time, or if they are flexible, you can show them the work, see if they like it so far. If not, then that's also good. You can go back and change it, you have more time, but that's entirely dependent on a whole other factor, which is the client. So that introduces a whole other can of worms, let's just say, to the project, right? So That's one thing. But if it's your personal project, I'm here to tell you that it's okay if you don't seem to like it. And you shouldn't get discouraged. One thing that I learned so far doing this is that basically have to take what you can from all of those quote unquote failed projects and put them together for the next iteration. In this particular case, the first major iteration that I went through wasn't really there, like I said. So one thing that I did was I took the things that I liked from that project and decided to add it to the next iteration of it. So I like the perspective grid. That's why I used a similar perspective grid to the previous one, which is a 2-point perspective grid. But the changes that I decided to make is I decided to give more space to the middle of the scene. So that way I have more things to work around. I have more things to play with. Now I can add more people. I can add maybe animals. I can add maybe more buildings and have a better angle of how the buildings are situated around each other and how the scene composition can help with the viewer's eyes. Hopefully, I'm not saying that this is like a 100% masterpiece and everybody should be in awe of it. Absolutely not. But one thing I'm saying is that compared to the previous version, I think it's still better. And I also decided to get the main character, the elf girl, to the side, and basically this allows for more breathing room for other elements in the scene, right? Because in the previous iteration she was in the middle. Of course, that wasn't too bad, but I always felt like this isn't quite there yet because I don't have enough space to show what the town is like, what the people look like in that town, what the buildings look like, in this world that I'm trying to build, right? So that's what I decided to do. And it's okay if at first you feel like your scene isn't there yet, the story isn't there. You can always go back and reiterate and change things around, change stuff around, even if it takes you more time because it's your personal project. Like I said, if you have time for your personal project, I would say definitely set aside that time to work on things, make things look better, don't rush things, and try to see if you can make it, better than what it was before. So, in my opinion, there is no real failure here. All the thumbnails and all the iterations that you do are basically testament to this because you are picking and choosing from successful designs and you're leaving behind the failures, right? Or in most cases, you would combine the failed ones, quote unquote, to make a better one, right? So I think it holds value to adhere to that and not to discourage yourself because you think that, oh, well, all these designs don't look really good. I really shouldn't go through with the project. Because trust me, like there have been many times, even in this particular project, that I was telling myself not to go through with it, not to finish it, not to color it even, and just not post it anywhere, and basically just, brush it to the side, maybe move on to the next one, maybe not. But at the end of the day, I think even if it's all in all, in total, a failed project, I would still say show it, put it out there, show it to people, or if you have a YouTube channel like mine, still put it out there. Or if you have an Instagram account, still put it out there. Maybe show the process. Maybe the process can help other people come up with their own designs. Maybe they can reiterate on what you have done. Maybe they can, come up with better processes for themselves. And now that they are more inspired, maybe they start posting stuff online, or maybe they start talking to their friends, and they can basically come up with new ways, let's say, to do art, and that is always great. So in total, in my opinion, I think it's not bad to have failed designs, to have many failed experiments, Because most of the stuff, let me tell you, and I think you guys are all smart and you guys all know this, is that most artists online, they don't really show you the failed stuff. All they have been doing and all they're doing is basically showing you the perfect stuff that they have done, right? Now the processes are all perfect. The sketches, oh my god, you can't even call them sketches. They look like finished products, right? So unfortunately, this is the culture now, and everybody is trying to, put the best out there. But sometimes, I would say 90% of the time, it's the failed experiments that lead to those successful results, right? And many people don't show that. Now I'm here to tell you not to be ashamed of such things, because of course the fundamentals would have to be there, and I'm not saying that the work that I'm showing right now is completely 100% adhering to fundamentals of design and color. Absolutely not. But I'm trying, and if you're trying, that's all that matters, right? And if you think that you are adhering to the fundamentals, if you think that you're putting your best foot forward and trying to learn and follow the fundamentals, and you're constantly trying to change your way, change your perspective, change what it is that you're trying to do to make it better than what it was before, I think you're on the right path. And you shouldn't be ashamed if the final result really isn't what you're looking for, because guess what? With time, it will look closer and closer to what you have in your head. It may not be a, 1 day shift. It doesn't happen overnight, let's just say, right? For some people it does, and those people do exist, but they are few and far between. And for most of us out there, it really doesn't work like that. You need to put in the effort and put in the amount of hours and put in the rips, so to speak, to be able to finally get something out there that is very close to what you were thinking initially, right? So that's the whole point of the video. Try to focus on the story that you're trying to tell, right? And don't be afraid of the failures. I, again, may do another video just speaking about not being afraid of the failures, because I think it holds so much value to not be afraid of your own failures, quote unquote failures, right? Because they will lead to something better eventually if you are patient enough and willing to go through quote unquote the suckage, let's say, right? So yeah, this was the whole point of the video. But as far as the storytelling goes, one final note that I'm gonna have to touch on is basically, even before all of the iterations, right? Even before all the thumbnails, all the blue sky sketches and everything, right? They teach you at colleges and whatnot. Trying to think of the story, like who is going where, such as who is looking at what is in the middle or top or the bottom of the scene, and who is trying to get to it, what is trying to get to it. You know what I mean, right? The story, basically, the thing that you're trying to convey. Think about that first, and then based on the project, it could, for me, the thumbnail could just be a few stick figures and it could be very loose. But if you have that story in your head, everything kind of clicks together eventually, right? And now you can basically hone in on the shapes, on the shape language. Of course, it's dependent on the project that you're working on. It could be stylized, it could be realistic. There's a whole slew of things that you need to be mindful of first, right? But in my opinion, all these things are secondary. The story comes first, and after the story, yes, you can now go hone in on what it is, what the visual style is, what the technique is going to be. Of course, technique has to be there, fundamentals have to be there, right? But the story of it is what matters the most. Now, I don't mean that it needs to be a full-on lore about this scene. No, it could be, like I said in the beginning of the video, it could just be a few lines here and there, just to get you started, just to get the creative juices flowing, right? oh, there are these group of people who are going to the bottom of the cavern to find something, right? To find a treasure, let's just say, right? And if that's the thing, then you should try to see if you can come up with a thumbnail that captures that feel, that story first. And now you can go and hone in on whatever else it is that you want to do, visually speaking. Okay, so this was the whole point of the video. I hope I made sense during this. Now again, this is for people who basically do visual arts. It could be for comic book artists, it could be for illustrators, could be for designers, or anybody who's doing art for themselves or for a client or as a hobby. It really doesn't matter. It's very, let's just say, inclusive, right? So I hope this helped. I believe that it helped me somewhat, just looking back and trying to see what the story was about, and not liking the first iteration that I did, and then not being afraid to change things around, test more things out, and finally coming up with an iteration that I felt was more in line with what I had in my head initially. Okay, I'll see you in the next video, guys. Take care, stay inspired, and bye.